welcome to session 10 of our study of the book of Revelation. In particular, we'll be looking at chapters 17 and 18 today. These two chapters, 17 and 18, describe the beast and the fall of the beast. Who was this beast? How did the beast fall? In 17 verse 9, Revelation 17:9, we read about the 7 mountains upon which the great prostitute sat. Obviously, this is an allusion to Rome. Rome is famous in the ancient world for being the city set on 7 hills. The city set on 7 hills. So Rome, reading between the lines, is the beast. Rome is evil. Rome is not neutral. It's not simply one amongst a number of world powers that have risen and fallen. Rome is evil. In these chapters, we see describe the fall of the beast and mourning on the earth as a result of the beast having fallen. Now, we may envision a future world power that might be deemed a beast. We might envision a future ruler that might be deemed a beast. But here in Revelation, Rome is the beast. Rome is the beast. And the beast has already fallen. So when we read 17 and 18, if you read the history right and you think about ancient history, this is something which has already happened. So let's take a quick review of ancient history and see what happened. In the year 410, invading Visigoths found the capital city of Rome virtually undefended, and they sacked the city, pillaged the city. In 455 AD, Vandals, in this case the ancient peoples known as the Vandals, sacked the city once more. In 476, Rome was overrun for the last time. In 476, a marauding people led by a man named Odoacer captured the emperor, a man named Romulus Augustulus. I've always thought that that's such a tragic irony, such a sad irony. That name, Romulus Augustulus, sounds so regal and so powerful, and he has the dubious distinction of being the last emperor in the western part of the empire. He has the disgrace of being carried off into exile. The story is deeper than that, though. When Rome was first pillaged in 410, this was less than a century after Constantine had legalized the faith. Constantine issued the Edict of Milan in 313. Less than a century after that, the city was sacked. In the year 40, there may have been 1,000 Christians in the world. So in the year 40, there may have been less than 1,000 Christians in the world. By the year 300, at the height of organized persecution in the empire, Christians were over 10% of the empire. 50 years later, in the middle of the 4th century, they were over 50% of the empire. Many people connected the dots. The empire legalized the faith in 313. As I mentioned, this was done when Constantine issued the Edict of Milan. More and more actually became Christian. In 380, Theodosius issued the Edict of Thessalonica. making it the official religion of the empire. And just a few years later, the city is sacked. And they connected the dots to blame the Christian church for the fall of Rome, to blame the adoption of Christianity for the fall of Rome. No less a figure than St. Augustine turned his intellect to try to explain this. St. Augustine, one of the most important thinkers in Christian history, one of the most important of the early church fathers, wrote a work called The City of God to address this. Some people had argued that the fall of Rome was the wrath of the gods, that this was the wrath of the Roman pantheon on the people for having adopted Christianity. Augustine's rebuttal was that the church was actually a source of hope and peace in the midst of the turmoil. In this work, he argues that there is a city of God as well as a city of man. The city of God was the city of God was permanent and was everlasting. The city of man was passing. Here today, gone tomorrow, and is destined to fall. The former, the city of God, is unshakable and is everlasting. The latter, the city of man, is always destined to fall. No matter what the case, the empire that was labeled as evil, in essence satanic, when Revelation was written, was overthrown by the Lamb by the middle of the 4th century. Think about that. Think about that. This empire, which in the late 1st century had been deemed evil, satanic if you will, by the middle of the 4th century had been defeated. Some have argued that Constantine didn't actually change anything when he issued the Edict of Milan. Rather, they argue that Constantine simply recognized a reality that had already happened. So the empire, the beast, had essentially been defeated by the early 4th century. And it had been defeated not without having raised a single army to take the field. The beast was defeated just as Revelation had said the beast would be. By the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. What had accounted for the defeat of the beast? What led to that happening? How had this taken place without an army ever being raised by the early church? Part of this is faithfulness and martyrdom. Roman rulers and writers were amazed by the grace and the peace with which the early Christians went to their deaths. They were amazed by that. Whether it was famous church fathers like Saint Cyprian or others, or Polycarp, or young mothers going to their deaths. Roman rulers and Roman writers were amazed by the grace and the peace with which ancient Christians became martyrs. They went to the sword or went to the beast in the amphitheater singing hymns and praying for their persecutors. and acknowledging that they were blessed to suffer and die for Christ. The word spread by one person telling another person. By the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. The word spread by word of mouth. One person tells another person, tells another person, tells another person. As I said in Revelation 12:11, they shall overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. Their testimony. One person tells another, tells another, tells another. The word spread by charity for the poor. Charity for the poor, for the destitute, was in the DNA of the earliest church. There was something about these earliest Christians that made them different, that distinguished them from everybody else. We can see this in how the earliest Christians acted during plagues. There were two great plagues that swept through the empire. The first between roughly 160 and 180, and then again in 249 to 262. It's unknown what the actual disease was. It is possible that these were smallpox, but this cannot be known for certain. But in both cases, these were terrible plagues that were very infectious. And in both of these, Christians looked after anyone who was sick. They looked after anyone who was sick, even at great risk to their own health and their own lives. Care for the poor, care for the dying was in their DNA, and that struck the Romans. We normally envision kingdoms falling by armies. If a kingdom is defeated, we normally think that it is defeated by a great ruler at the head of an army, marching across the field, defeating the next army in battle. But in this case, the Lamb and the followers of the Lamb overcame without ever leading an army into the field. They overcame by their faithfulness. They overcame by their testimony. They overcame by simple grace and charity. Enjoy your discussion.